Hello, chat. How are you guys doing? How's your week been? What's up, Hope? Nice of you to join. What's up, Dee? Hello. Hey, Bigfoot. I can't pronounce your name right now. Bigfoot troisième partie. What's up, Losh? Hey, Nikki. Hey, Katie. Nice of you to join. What's up, Laura? I did not forget about daylight savings, okay? You can't forget about daylight savings these days, right? Because like the clock on your phones are all they're all automatic now. So Petrie, terrible weekend. Why? Why? I hope your weekend gets better. Every minute late is a song. Wait a minute. I was like 1 minute late. Okay, you can't even call that late. How late is late? So guys, how many minutes are you late? Wait, how many minutes do you have to be late for you to be considered late? Like if you met a friend, for lunch or something, how many minutes do they have to be late for you to be like, hey, you're late? Okay, how long do you wait for you to give them like shit about it? For me, probably like I would probably give them like 10 to 15 minutes. Like I think the rule of class in school works in this case, right? Like if you're I don't know if this is true, but we always said this in school. Like if the teacher is 15 minutes late, you get to leave class, right? 1 minute? 1 minute is not late. 1 minute means your clocks are different. Like you have different times on your watches. Yeah, 10 minutes, 5, 10, 15 minutes around there, right? Yes, I do, because I'm probably the one who's always late. Hey, listen, I'm very punctual, okay? 1 minute late is late. So what do you do, Losh? Do you come to lunch like 10 minutes early just to make sure you're not late? You have the same rules at school, right? Sorry. I don't know why I have stuff in my throat right now. You have the same rules in your school? Yeah, the 15-minute rule, right? But I don't think it's just the same school. I think every school that we had that in every school. In every school that I went to, we had the 15-minute rule. I don't know if that's the real rule though. I think people just made it up. I don't think I don't think you can just leave class, right? Oh, what about weddings? Like if a wedding starts at 6, when do you come to the wedding? I think this answer is different depending on whether or not you're Asian. Seriously. Like if the wedding is at 6, when do you come? If the wedding reception is at 6, when do you come to the wedding? I think my Asian people know the answers. In college, you had that rule, not high school. Oh. We had that school. We had that rule in high school too, I think. But no one ever did that. Because you're in high school, you can't really leave. I don't know. Wait, if the wedding is okay, if the wedding reception starts at 6, you come in at 5? Really? Okay. The rule is if the wedding is at 6, you come in at 7. Okay? Because from 6 to 7, nothing's happening. Like, they're just waiting for guests to come in. So if the reception is at 6, you come in at 7. That's when the party actually starts. Yeah. In my parents' eyes, you're now very late. Like, that's how we Asians always do it. You get to the wedding about 10 minutes in advance. Mexican events usually start late, so you know what I'm talking about. Well, yeah. Oh my god, no, you have to wait an hour to eat. Oh, yeah. They don't serve right away. So if the wedding starts at 6, you gotta come in at 7. You've never been to an Asian wedding? Like, no one expects you to be there at 6. If the reception is at 5, no one expects you to be at 5. They expect you to be there at 6. What's up, Streety McMeaty? Right. So if it's an Asian wedding, you gotta start it an hour early. I think that's the rule. Okay. Anyways, I have this today. Ooh. It is chocolate. It is chocolate coconut. This sounds good. Who likes coconut? Oh, fancy. This is really fancy. Ooh. Oh my god, so good. Chocolate and coconut? Oh my god. Hmm. Oh, this is so good. Chocolate and coconut is a really good mix. It's got to be like a 9 out of 10. Holy shit. So is the actual discussion gonna start in 49 minutes? No, we're not starting an hour late. Okay, this is not a wedding. This is a stream. Your 8-year-old wants to take Taekwondo after school. Hell yeah, do it. I took Taekwondo. It's a great way to like have your kids meet new friends and work out and stuff. And it's fun. All right. Let's get started. Okay. So, what happened last week? All right. So last week we were at what, chapter 2? Duan Yu, our main character for now. All right. He's going off to invite Zhong Ling's dad to come give them an antidote to the poison that her Martin gave the people of the Divine Farmers sect, right? So he's going off to get her dad, and he encounters this couple talking at night, right? and he hides and he listens in. So the couple turns out is one person is from the East faction of the No Measure sect, and the other one is from the West section, the West faction. And apparently they're about to run away because the whole sect was going to be attacked by the Divine Farmer clan, right? So as he's listening in, he listens to them talk about the history of the clan, and he finds out that long ago they saw these angels fighting on the Jade Cliff, right? And it looks like they were doing some divine martial arts, so really good martial arts. So that's why everyone wanted to go there, right? Everyone wants to go there and learn this awesome martial arts. And that's why they have their tournaments every 5 years to see who can live in that palace and then hopefully learn the divine martial arts. So unfortunately, they see Duan Yu hiding there and they chase him and he runs off and he runs and he jumps down a cliff to escape, right? And he falls down. He's hurt, but he survives. He survives, but he doesn't have much food. He finds out that there are, as he's like poking around down there, he finds out that when he jumped down the cliff, the place that he was from is that Jade Cliff, right? The place that he jumped down, it's the Jade Cliff, and it's the sacred place that no one is supposed to go in, right? No one from the sect is supposed to enter. But he jumps down. He finds out that two people probably live there and they practice sword together, right? And the way that place is, the way that place is structured, there's the Jade Cliff, and then there's this rock that's really reflective, right? So it looks like this couple that used to be down there, that used to live there, they would practice sword together, right? They would practice sword fighting together, and their reflections would reflect off that rock and onto the Jade Cliff, so that everyone could see, right? So that's so they were probably not, like, they were not angels; they were normal human beings. But it just happens that their reflections were reflected onto the Jade Cliff, and he figured that one of them must have died first, and then the other one died shortly afterwards, right? Because they saw two people fight a long time ago. The clan, they saw two people fight together, and then one person, and then I think after a while they only saw one person practicing sword. So it seems like initially there were two people, and then one person died or something, and then the other person also died. So he's still poking around, and he finds this entrance to a secret home dug into the mountain, right? And inside this place, he sees this beautiful statue, and he figured it must have been the woman who died after that man, right? So it must be the woman, that woman that was practicing sword with another man, and it's her statue there. And right now he's like delirious, right? He's delirious. He didn't have food. It's been a couple of days, so he's not in the right mind, right? So he sees this beautiful statue and he kind of falls in love, and he vows to do everything the statue says, right? So he starts bowing to the statue. He wants to do everything that it wants. And as he's bowing, he finds these words on her feet telling him to kowtow 1,000 times, right? So in this state, in this like delirious state, he does so. He starts kowtowing 1,000 times, right? And so every time you kowtow, your head hits the floor, and in this place, as he's kowtowing, he kowtows, his head hits this mat, right? There's this mat where the head is supposed to be. So he kowtows every time he kowtows, he hits this mat, and after 1,000 kowtows, he tears a hole in the mat, and he finds this silk bundle, right? Inside this silk bundle, there's this martial arts manual. And that's it. That's where we left off. How about that? Duan Yu is only the number 2 simp. All right, you ready? All right, chapter 2, part 2. Let's go. All right, inside his, he finds a single roll of a silk scroll. So he finds a scroll. He unrolled the scroll. The first line read, "Divine skill of the northern darkness." The handwriting was beautiful and elegant, yet powerful, same as the words written on the outside of the silk bundle. After it was written, Zhuangji's careful travels. Read, "Beyond the northern boundaries is the sea of darkness, a sea of heaven. There are fishes within thousands of kilometers long, but no one knows really how long." Also read, "If the accumulated water is not enough, then it is no matter that the boat's big. If the water from the overturned cup is more than that can be held by the depression, then even cabbage leaves can be a boat. Set the cup inside and become as one. Then, if the water is little, then the boat is big." Yeah, this must have been some like really poetic writing. In our sex's kung fu, accumulating inner force is most important. Once inner force is strong, then all of the kung fus of all the sects are ours to use, just like the northern darkness, able to hold all boats, no matter the size, able to contain all fishes, big or small. For this reason, the inner force is most basic and first, while moves are last. Use the diagrams below and diligently learn inner force training and meditation. Oh, look. Okay, so for this martial arts, your inner energy, your chi, is more important, while the sword moves is secondary. Duan Yu praised, Dear goddess could not have made it any clearer with this passage." He thought some more. "Since this divine skill of the northern darkness is inner force kung fu, learning it should be no harm to anyone." So he unrolled some more of the scroll with his left hand. Ah! He suddenly screamed as his heart raced a mile a minute. In an instant he blushed to the roots of his ears, and his whole body felt like it was burning up. For on the scroll there was a drawing of a naked female, not a single strand of clothing on her body, face exactly like that of the statues. Duan Yu felt as if one glance would be disrespect and obscene towards the dear goddess, so he immediately rolled up the scroll. Oh, this is not a martial arts manual. It's something else. Only after a long while did he think, Dear goddess instructed using the diagrams below and diligently learn. I'm only following her instructions. It can't be counted as disrespect. His hands still shaking, he unrolled the scroll again. The face of the female was smiling beautifully and sweetly. The ends of her eyebrows, the corners of her eyes, and her rosy cheeks all exuded a seductive charm. When compared to that serious expression of the jade statue, although their looks are the same, the feeling they give off are completely different. He could almost hear his heart beating heavily as his eyes moved onto the woman's body and saw a thin green line. The line started on her left shoulders, moved horizontally until below her chin, then slanted downwards to her right breast. When he saw a slight sign of a mound of her breast, his heart skipped at least 5 beats and he immediately shut his eyes. After a long wait, he slowly opened his eyes and looked down again. The green line passed underneath the armpits, followed her right arm, passing her wrist, and finally came to a stop on her right thumb. The more he followed the line, the more relaxed he became, figuring looking at dear goddess's arms and fingers is nothing bad. But even when just looking at her beautiful and shapely arm and legs, his heart could not help but start picking up again. He's just reading it for the kung fu. Good one. There was another green line that started at the base of the neck and went downwards past the chest and stomach all the way until a few inches above the navel. Duan Yu dared not to look at that line very closely and turned his attention back to the green line on the arm. This time he noticed a lot of small words by the line, starting from Cloudy Gate all the way to Less Merchant. He often listens in on his parents talking about Kung Fu, although he never really paid much attention to it. He has heard them talk about it too often. So he recognizes these small words as names of pressure points on the body. He unrolled the scroll a bit further and read, Divine skill of the Northern Darkness is about using others' inner strength as my own. The sea of the Northern Darkness did not create itself. It said, all the rivers empties into the ocean. The ocean is because it can contain the rivers. The vast open seas was accumulated. So scripture of the lunar hand and lungs is the first lesson of the divine skill of the Northern Darkness, followed by detailed instructions as to how to practice this Kung Fu. It concludes the section with, when others practice inner strength, the path that they take is from Cloudy Gate to Less Merchant. But our carefree sex's Kung Fu is from Less Merchant to Cloudy Gate. If thumb comes in contact with others, then their inner force will gush into my body and be stored at Cloudy Gate, as well as other pressure points. But if the opponent's inner force is stronger than mine, then the water of the sea will empty into the rivers and will lead to life-threatening dangers. You have been forewarned. The other skills of our sect has not been developed fully, and are only able to weaken the opponent's inner force, but cannot make it available for our own use. It is as if stealing a fortune and yet misplacing it. Such a waste of something so precious. So it looks like this martial arts is about sucking the chi from another person. You're predicting the dear goddess is the girl's mother? Maybe. Duan Yu let out a long sigh as some part of him felt that there is something not quite right with this skill. Using others' inner strength for your own use, isn't that just like stealing something precious from others? But then he also thought, dear goddess could not have picked a better metaphor. Rivers empty into the sea because it is the rivers themselves doing the emptying, not because the sea is stealing the river's waters. My thinking, dear goddess, stealing from others, how disrespectful is that? Punishment is called for, definitely called for. So he lifted his hand up and slapped himself once on both cheeks. The first slap on his left cheek was rather hard and very painful, so naturally he took off a lot of force on the second slap on his right cheek. He thought to himself, bad, evil people came to make trouble for dear goddess, so dear goddess took their inner strength for herself. That's only taking away bad, evil people's ability to do bad, evil things. Like grabbing the butcher knife away from the butcher, not killing him. How could a person such as dear goddess ever do a single bad thing? So he unrolled more of the scroll. There were many, many more drawings of naked females on the scroll, some standing and some sitting, some showing her front side, while others show her back. What kind of book is this? Although the face remained the same, her expressions changed as well, sometimes happy and sometimes worried, sometimes full of loving tenderness, while other times filled with jealous disdain. Not a single expression was the same as another one. There were a total of 36 drawings in total. Every one of them have several colorful lines with pressure points clearly labeled and training instructions. At the very end of the scroll were the words Minute Ice Ripple Step. Following it were countless numbers of footprints, each labeled with position names from the Book of Changes. Only a few days ago, Duan Yu was still diligently reading and studying the Book of Changes for all his worth. So upon seeing these names, his spirit and interest immediately picked up, as if he was meeting an old friend. The footprints on the scroll were densely packed and numerous, not quite sure if there are thousands of them or just hundreds. There were green lines connecting every step with another, and on the lines were arrows as well. Obviously, a very, very complicated foot skill. At the end were written, If suddenly meeting a strong foe, this can be used for protection, as well as accumulating inner strength. Then take the foe's life. He rationalizes everything that he does. Smart people are very good at rationalizing things. He rolled up the scroll, clasped his hands, and bowed towards it. Only then did he carefully put it in his shirt. Turning to the statue, he said, Dear goddess, you have instructed me to train 3 times a day. Duan Yu dare not disobey. From this day forth, I'll be sure to be extra polite and courteous to everyone I meet. Then others won't come at me. Of course, then I wouldn't need to steal their inner strength. As for this minute ice ripple step, I will definitely work extra hard on it. If things do not seem right, I'm out of there. Then there would be no need to steal inner strength. As for that section about kill all disciples of the carefree sect, he dared not to even think about that. Seeing that there is a door on the left, he slowly walked through it. Inside was another stone room with a stone bed. By the bed was a small wooden cradle. He stared blankly at the cradle. Could it be possible that dear goddess had a baby? No way, no way. Such a beautiful girl. How could she have a baby? Just the very thought that this graceful as a virgin, dear goddess of his, actually might have a baby put him on the verge of tears because of the disappointment. But his thoughts immediately turned, that's right. This is the cradle that dear goddess used when she was a baby. Her mom and dad made it for her. That carefree man and dear Chu Shui were probably her parents. Yes, that must be it. Not willing to think about this anymore and find holes in his assumptions, he immediately cheered up. There were no quilts, pillows, or clothing in the room. There is only a 7-stringed zither hanging on a wall in this room. The strings are all broken. Left of the bed was a stone table, on which were carved a 19 by 19 square of the Go board. On the board there are about 200 or so stones. Both sides were well placed for the match. Obviously, this game has not ended. Zither is here, game is not over, yet the beauty is gone. Duan Yu silently stood there in the room. Before he knew it, 2 streaks of tears ran down his cheeks. Suddenly, his heart turned cold. Aiyo! If there is a match, then there must have been 2 people playing. Then dear goddess would most likely be that dear Chui Shui and Chiu Shui, and she would be playing it against her husband, carefree man here. This is, I got it. This game was not played by 2 people. Dear goddess was here all by herself, and played against herself out of boredom and loneliness. Dear goddess, why didn't you call out several times then? Duan Yu would have heard your voice and naturally jumped down here to play the game with you. He walked closer and looked the game over carefully. The more he looked, the more surprised he became. The changes and turns in this game was incredible and complex, almost as if it is what a Go player would call a puzzle, traps within traps, and can lead to many different outcomes. Duan Yu has been working hard on the game of Go for years. Back when he was obsessed, he spent entire days playing against a Mr. Huo from accounting. That sounds funny. It's like something from The Office. He was playing against Mr. Huo from accounting. He was born smart, and in merely a year's time, he had turned a 4-stone handicap on himself to a 3-stone handicap on Mr. Huo. His skills are among the best in all of Dali, yet he cannot figure out how this match would turn out. It seems like the black side has the game in hand, but there is still some chances for the whites to come back. He stared for a long time as the board got blurrier and blurrier. Seeing there is two candle holders on the table, each with a half a candle remaining in it, he grabbed the fire knife and fire stone of the tray on the candle shelf and lit the candles so he could look at the match some more. He looked and thought about the match so much that he began to feel dizzy and nauseous. He stood up and yawned. Astounded, he thought, this match really is something. Even if I take 7 or 8 more days, I still may not be able to figure it out. By then, my life would be gone, and Miss Zhong would have long been buried alive by the Divine Farmer clan. Knowing that if he looked at the table again, who knows how long it would be before he can move on again. So he turned around and reached behind him to take a hold of a candle holder so as to make sure that he does not lay another glance on the board. Suddenly, excitement shot through his heart. That's right, such a complicated game must be a puzzle laid out by dear goddess herself and cannot be done by 2 people playing. Wonderful! He lifted his head up and saw that there is another cave entrance at the end of the stone bed. By the entrance were written, Blessed Reading Ground. Remembering what dear goddess wrote on the outside of the silk bundle, he thought, so, Blessed Reading Ground is here. Dear goddess told me that the collection of every kung fu of every sect would belong to me. I don't want to learn kung fu, so it's no big deal if I don't look through this collection, but it's an order from dear goddess. I can't disobey. So he walked through the door with the candle. Once he had the chance to look around, he immediately let out a long sigh and felt a lot better. Turns out that this blessed reading ground is a huge room, several times bigger than the room outside. Inside the room was filled with rows and rows of bookshelves, but there was not a single book on the shelves. He held up the candle and walked closer. Labels dotted the shelves, all of them saying things such as Kunlun, Shaolin, Xincheng of Sichuan, Penglai of Shandong, etc., etc. There is even a Duans of Dali label, but under Shaolin there was a note. Missing Sutra of Changing Nerves. Under Beggar Clan was a note. Missing 18 dragons subduing palms. And the Duans of Dali was noted with, regrettably, missing... What did we call this? Yi Yang Finger. No. Yi Yang Touch. 6-veined divine sword. A long time ago, these shelves were undoubtedly filled with diagrams and instructions on all of the kung fus of every sect, but someone has moved all the books away a long time ago. A burden that Duan Yu has been carrying in his heart lifted, as he could not be any happier. Now that the books aren't here anymore, I can't learn any of them. This doesn't count as disobeying dear goddess. But then he felt ashamed. Duan Yu, my good man, you are happy because you can't follow the instructions left by dear goddess. That is not being loyal to her. Not seeing the kung fu books, you should be sad, frustrated, and mad, not happy. Dear goddess in heaven, please forgive me. So apparently they used to have the martial arts manuals of like all of these other martial arts schools, right? Except for three, except for like the Beggar Clan, uh, where is it? The Beggar Clan, Shaolin, and the Duans of Dali. Seeing no other ways out of this blessed reading ground, he returned back to the room of the jade statue. He just barely looked at the eyes of the jade statue and became spellbound once again. He stared blankly for a long time before finally clasping his hands and bowing deeply, almost to the ground. He said, "Dear goddess, I have important matters that I must attend to, so I have to temporarily leave. After I have saved Miss Zhong, then I will come back to be with you once again." With great effort and struggle, he walked out of the room with a candle in hand, looking for another exit. There was another flight of steps, heading upwards on the side that he did not notice before, because as soon as he entered the room, his attention fell onto the statue. He quickly walked to the end of the steps. There was a door that was barely large enough to fit through a head. He stuck his head out and took a look around. What he saw sent his heart racing What he saw sent his heart racing out with fear. What he saw was fearsome rapids, as water roared past him with great speed and noise, for he had come upon a river. The towering and jagged cliff stood by the bank of the river. From the looks of it, he had reached the Lankang River. Excited and surprised, he slowly climbed out of the hole. Looking around him, he saw that he is more than 30 meters above the rapids, so no matter how high up the water gets, it would never reach the hole and flood the cave. But to get to the river banks is no easy task either, so he put his hands and legs to full use as he awkwardly and pathetically started climbing up. All the while, he was taking care to remember all the details of his surrounding, so as to be able to return here once he finished saving lives. He thought, "Every year from now on, I have got to spend several months in this cave to keep dear goddess company." The banks of the river is covered by rocks. Not even a small path could be found. He walked like this for about 4 kilometers when he came upon a wild peach tree. Peaches were all over this tree. He picked them and had himself a good meal. Also, that was easy. The cave had an exit. So he just got out of there. Once his stomach filled up, his spirit did as well, and he walked another 5 kilometers when he came upon a small trail. Following this trail until it was almost dusk, he finally came upon an iron-chained bridge. On a rock by the bridge were carved "Well-Doers Crossing." He could not be happier, for Well-Doers Crossing was one of the places that he had to pass according to Zhongling. He has made it onto the right path, so he grabbed the iron chains for support as he stepped onto a plank of wood. This bridge is comprised of 4 iron chains. The 2 at the bottom have planks of wood laid on top to walk on, while the 2 on the side are for support. As soon as he stepped onto the bridge, the chains started to shake. When he got to the middle, the shaking got even worse. Glancing down, the river was rushing by like stampeding horses below his feet. One bad step could lead to falling into the river. Then no matter how good of a swimmer you are, you would not survive. He dared not to take another look down. Staring straight ahead, he nervously and shakily began to pray, "Amida Buddha, Amida Buddha." One step at a time, he finally made it to the other end. Only after sitting down and resting by the bridge for a while did he continue on as Zhongling had directed him. After walking quickly for more than an hour, he came upon a huge and dark forest. He knew he had arrived at the entrance of the Valley of 10,000 Calamities, Zhongling's home. Walking up a little closer, he came upon 9 huge pine trees lined up on the left. He counted to the fourth tree from the right. Following Zhongling's direction, he went around, behind the pine tree, pulling away the tall grass, and, as expected, a hole appeared before him. He thought, "This valley of 10,000 calamities is really well hidden indeed. Had I not been told by Miss Zhong, who could have figured out that the entrance is actually inside a pine tree?" He walked into the hole while keeping the grass out of the way with his left hand. His right hand found a big iron ring. With a mighty pull, he lifted up the block of wood, revealing a series of steps. He walked down several steps, turned around, used both hands to gently let the wooden block fall back into place, and continued on down the steps. After 30 or so steps, the path took a turn to the right, and then after several meters, it turned upwards. He thought to himself, building stone steps in a place like this is not easy at all, but when compared with the steps at Dear Goddess's place, these come up way short. After about 30 steps upwards, he reached level ground. In front of him was a great field of grass. At the other end was another collection of pine trees. He walked over the field of grass and saw that one of the pines had a 3-meter long, 1-meter wide section pared off, and a layer of white paint was painted on. On it was written, "Those with the surname of Duan will die without exception." 9 of the words were black. The word die, however, was blood red. Okay, so he reached the right place. Okay. Apparently, this guy hates people with the surname of Duan. Duan Yu thought, "Wonder why the master of this valley hates us Duans so much. Even if a guy with the surname of Duan wronged him, there are thousands of Duans in the world. Is he going to kill them all?" At this time, the light is dark. These 10 words looked fearsome and threatening, especially that red die, for it looked as if it was written in blood. He thought some more. So this is why Miss Zhong told me not to say that my surname is Duan. She told me to bang on the 6th word 3 times, meaning banging on this Duan word. She didn't say Duan because she was afraid that I would get mad. If I have to bang on it, I'll bang on it. What's the big deal? She saved my life. Not only is it okay to bang on that Duan word 3 times, even if I have to bang Duan Yu's head 3 times, I would do it. Noticing there is a nail nailed on the tree with a small iron hammer hanging from it, he grabbed it and banged on that Duan word. Chung! A loud sound of metal meeting metal came when the hammer fell. Taking Duan Yu by surprise, he was momentarily startled before realizing that behind the Duan was an iron board, and behind that was hollow. Because the outside was painted white, he didn't notice it. He banged the hammer twice more and hung it back up. After a while, a young girl's voice came from behind the pine. "Miss, you are back." Her voice was full of happiness and excitement. Duan Yu replied, "I'm here because Miss Zhong asked me to come here to meet with the master of this valley." The girl let out a surprised "Yeh!" Then she asked, You are an outsider? Where's Miss?" Duan Yu did not see her body, but he answered, "Miss Zhong is in danger. I came here especially to report that." The girl asked anxiously, "What kind of danger?" Duan Yu answered, "She is captured and it may be life-threatening." The girl replied, "Aiyo, you wait here for a little bit. I'm going to report to the madam." Duan Yu replied, "That would be great." He thought to himself, "Miss Zhong told me to see her mother first anyways." After waiting for a while, he heard hurried footsteps come from behind the tree. The girl from before said, "Madam requests your presence." She came out from behind the tree. She was about 16 or 17 and is dressed like a servant. She spoke up again. "Honored guest, sir, please follow me." Duan Yu asked, "How do I address you?" The servant girl shook her head, meaning that she can't talk anymore. Seeing fear on her face, Duan Yu dared not say any more. The servant girl led him through the woods. followed a small trail toward the left, and arrived in front of a house. She pushed the door open, waved her hands at Duan Yu, and stepped to the side to let him in first. Walking in, Duan Yu noticed that he has entered a small lounge with a huge candle alit on the table in the middle of the room. Even though the room is rather small, it was elegantly decorated. After he sat down, the servant girl came with the cup. "Sir, please try the tea. Madam will be out very soon." He took 2 sips of the tea when he noticed that there were 4 hanging scrolls on the east wall. On them were drawings of plum, orchid, bamboo, and chrysanthemum, but they were hung in the order of orchid, bamboo, chrysanthemum, and plum. On the west wall was 4 scrolls of spring, summer, autumn, and winter, but their order was wrong as well: winter, summer, spring, and autumn. He mused, "Miss Zhong's parents are both martial type of people. No surprise there if they don't know much about books, paintings, and things such as those." Hearing sounds of jewelry clanking, a mistress had walked out from the back. She was wearing a silk shirt that was of a light green color, and looked about 36 or 37 years old. Seeing that her face was pretty and delicate, with a faint resemblance of Zhong Ling between her eyebrows, Duan Yu knew that this was Madame Zhong. So he stood up, clasped his hands, and bowed. "Humble Duan Yu respectfully salutes to Madam." As soon as he said it, he grimaced. "Hey, yo, why did you blurt out your real name? Oh, God." "I was concentrating entirely on how much she looked like Zhong Ling and completely forgot about making up a fake name." Madame Zhong was a bit taken aback, but she bowed in return, nevertheless. "Many fortunes to you," she followed with. Your surname is Duan?" There was surprise in her expression. Duan Yu figured that since he had already blurted out his own name, it is too late to lie about that. So he replied, "Yes, my humble surname is Duan." Madame Zhong continued with her questions. "Don't know where your hometown is, or what your father is known as?" Duan Yu thought, I gotta tell 2 big lies here, or else she might guess who I am. So he replied, "I am from the city of Lin'an in Henan province. My father's given name is Long." There were some traces of suspicion on Madame Zhong's face. "But you are speaking in the Dali dialect." Duan Yu replied, "I moved to Dali 3 years ago and learned the local dialect. I am afraid it is not very good. Please excuse my bad accents." Madame Zhong took a deep breath and replied, "Very convincing dialect, not the least bit different from the locals. Please sit down." The 2 of them sat down. Miss Zhong kept on looking up and down non-stop, sizing him up. All this attention made Duan Yu very uncomfortable, so he spoke up. "I ran into some troubles on the way here, causing my clothing to get torn. Your daughter is in danger, that is why I came here. Only that the news was very urgent, so I had no chance to switch into something more clean and appropriate. Please forgive my rudeness." Madame Zhong seemed to have suddenly been snapped out of a trance by his words. She anxiously asked, "What's happened to my daughter?" Duan Yu took out the pair of shoes from his shirt and said, "Miss Zhong told me to come here with these as proof and see you." Madame Zhong took the shoes over into her hand and replied, "Thank you so much. Don't know what kind of trouble my daughter has run into." So Duan Yu told her everything that has happened, from the Sword Lake Palace to now, leaving out only the section regarding Dear Goddess. Madame Zhong was quiet the entire time, but her face got darker and darker. When Duan Yu finished, she sighed and said, As soon as she leaves the house, she runs into trouble," Duan Yu replied. "All of this started because of me. Miss Zhong has no fault in this matter." Madame Zhong looked at him and then quietly said, "Yes, that's right. Not really that surprising, really. Back then I was the same." Duan Yu asked, "What?" Surprised, Madame Zhang's cheeks suddenly turned red. Even though she's almost at middle age, when she gets bashful and shy, she looks just like a young girl. She bashfully replied, I just remembered something else. After saying that, her face turned even redder, so she immediately tried to change the subject. I think this matter is a bit troublesome. Seeing how bashful she is, Duan Yu thought, of course this matter is rather troublesome, but you don't need to blush like this. Compared to you, your daughter is much more natural about these things. Suddenly, a burly male voice came from outside the door. Everything was going well. How did Qin Shi get killed? This startled Madame Zhang. She turned and whispered, my husband is here. He is always suspicious. Mr. Duan, could you go hide for a bit? Duan Yu replied, I still should really meet his acquaintance. Wouldn't it be better? Madame Zhang covered his mouth with her left hand and grabbed his arm with her right. She pulled him to the east-winged room and whispered, Stay here. Don't make a sound no matter what. My husband's temper is short and violent. Just a little bit of misunderstanding could cost you your life. Even then, I can't help you. Even though she looked weak and bashful, her kung fu is first rate. This little push-pull left Duan Yu no chance to refuse, as he obediently followed her into the room. But he was secretly angry with her. I came this far to tell you about your daughter. For better or worse, I'm still a guest. Making me hide and sneak around like this, isn't that making me out to be a thief? Madame Zhang smiled at him tenderly. As soon as Duan Yu saw the smile, all his rage disappeared as he nodded in agreement. This guy. Madame Zhang turned around, walked out, and shut the door on her way out. Hello. What's up, Ki-sang? Soon he heard two people walk in, followed by a man calling out, Wife! Duan Yu peeked out from the crack between the door and the wall. He saw a man of around 30, dressed in servant's clothing, face full of panic and terror. There was another tall and thin man. He was wearing black and facing outwards, so Duan Yu cannot make out his face. But he could see his fan-sized hands at his side. The back of the hand was covered with veins. Duan Yu thought, wow, Miss Zhang's dad has got some big hands. Madame Zhang asked, Qin Shi died? How? The servant replied, Master sent me and Jin Shi to the North Manor to welcome the guests. Master told us there would be 4 of them. At noon today, one of them arrived, said his surname was Yue. Master instructed to call the one whose name is Yue as third sir, but the man immediately went into a rage and shouted, I'm Yue number 2. Why are you calling me third? Trying to degrade me? And with one slap, he smacked Qin Shi face so hard he fell over bleeding. Madame Zhang frowned. Such fragrant violence. Since when did good old third Yue turn to second? Master Zhang replied, Yue number 3 always had a weird and short temper, not to mention his deranged personality. As he replied, he turned around. Peeking through the crack, Duan Yu was in for a shock, for his face was stretched out, long like a horse. His eyes were unusually high, with his huge round nose and mouth squeezed close to one another. So, between his eyes and nose, there was a huge area of nothing. With Zhang Ling being as pretty and enchanting as she is, who could have guessed that her father would be this ugly? Duan Yu mused. Thank goodness she resembles her mother and not in the least bit like her father. Definition of flagrant? Ah, crap. Where is it? Flagrant. Flagrant means such unnecessary violence. So flagrant means unnecessary, I believe. Oof. It could be unnecessary or it could be like extraordinary. Oof. Oof. I'm gonna say extraordinary violence. Like that's a lot of violence. That's over the top. Conspicuously or obviously offensive. I don't think I was right. So it means obvious, like like way too obvious, obviously offensive. Damn. Damn. You got me. You got me. All right, you get a song. You get one song at the end. Thanks, Dee. Thanks a lot. Flagrant. Such obvious violence. Really? Such obvious violence. Peeking through the crack, Duan Yu was in for a shock, for his face was stretched. Where saw that? Master Zhong's face was full of worry and concern, but as soon as he turned around and faced his wife, his face turned happy and tender, adding a bit of appeal to that horrid face of his. He continued on. Yue number three's temperament is exactly what I thought might offend and frighten you. That's why I didn't let him enter this valley. This is a small matter, no need to fret about it too much. This is all very strange to Duan Yu. Just a bit ago, Madame Zhong was very frightened when she heard that her husband was coming, but from how he is treating her, it seemed like he has nothing but love and respect for her. Madame Zhong replied, Small matter. Qin Shi has loyalty and wholeheartedly served us for all these years, and now is killed by that pig of a friend of yours. My heart can't take it as well as yours can. Master Zhong smiled at her in an attempt to make her feel better. Yes, you sympathize with the servants. That's because you're of your kind heart. Madame Zhong asked the servant, Lai Fu what happened after that? Lai Fu answered, When Jin Shi was hit onto the floor, he hadn't died yet. I immediately started to yell, Second sir, please don't get mad at us, ignorant fools. He laughed and seemed very happy. I helped Jin Shi up and started setting up the table for that man named Yue. He asked, How come Zhong isn't here to see me? I replied, Master hasn't found out about Second Sir's honored arrival, or else he would have came here much earlier to welcome you. I'm going to report this to him right now. He nodded when he saw that Jin Shi was standing there shaking, so he asked, I just slapped you. I bet you are cursing me deep down inside, aren't you? Jin Shi replied, No, I wouldn't dare, never ever dare. That man said, Deep down inside you are probably calling me an evil person. So evil that I can't get any more evil, right? Ha 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 ha. Qin Shi replied, No, Second Sir is a great person, not at all evil. That man's eyebrows turned sideways, and he shouted, You are saying I'm not evil at all? Qin Shi is so scared that his whole body was shaking. You, Second Sir, is not evil at all, not a trace of evilness. That guy screamed in rage. Suddenly, he grabbed Qin Shi and snapped his neck. His voice was shaking, obviously still shocked by what he saw. The way I say those servants' names is so funny. Okay, Losh. Wait, how do I say it then? Huh? 星期二. What's wrong with that? Madame Zhang sighed and waved her hand. You have had enough shock for one day. Why don't you go and get some rest? Lai Fu bowed. Yes, ma'am, and walked out. Madame Zhang shook her head and let out a long sigh. I'm not feeling very well and would like a little bit of peace and quiet. Master Zhang replied, All right, I'm going to go see Yue number 3 to make sure he doesn't cause more trouble. Madame Zhang observed, I'd say it's best if you call him Yue number 2 instead. Master Zhang replied, Yue number 3 might be vicious, but I'm not scared of him at all. I'm not fussing over the Jin Shi-er's murder, not only because he has given me a lot of face by coming all this way to help me. Madame Zhang shook her head and said, We have been living here in peace and quiet for 10 years now. In these 10 years, I have not left the valley at all. Are you still not satisfied? Why must you go invite the 4 arch-villains here to make a mess of everything? You give me all that sweet talk all the time, when in reality you don't care about me at all. Master Zhang immediately replied, Since when did I not care about you? I invited the 4 of them here for you. Madame Zhang humphed. For me? Well, let me thank you. If you really care about me, then listen to me and send these 4 arch-villains on their way. Duan Yu was just feeling rather odd about this whole situation in the neighboring room. That Yue number 3 killed for no reason at all. He really is a downright evil. Could there really be 3 more people who are as evil as he is? Master Zhang was pacing back and forth in the hall. He spoke up with a bit of anger in his voice. That guy named Duan disgraced me too much. If I don't avenge this wrong, then how can I, Zhong Wan Chou, have face to live in this world? Duan Yu mused. So, your name is Zhong Wan Chou. 10,000 enmities? This name seems rather inappropriate. As the saying goes, enemies are easy to make and hard to make up to. Holding 1 enmity is already is not a good thing, much less 10,000 enmities. No wonder your face got pulled that long. The fact that you were able to marry such a flowery and goddess-like wife with your looks means that you have about all the luck in the world. You should change your name to 10,000 fortunes, Zhong Wanxin. Madame Zhang frowned and coldly replied, Actually, the one you really hate is me, and not that other person. If you really wanted to cause trouble for him, why don't you go to their house and fight it out with him? Asking for help like this, there won't be much glory in it, even if you win. The veins on Zhong Wanchou's forehead were all clearly visible as he shouted, He has all kinds of dogs and sidekicks under him. You know that? I wanted to duel it out with him, but he never shows his face. What can I do? Madame Zhang lowered her head as drops of tears quietly landed on her sleeves. This doesn't sound like a good relationship. Not at all. Zhong Wanchou panicked. I'm so sorry. Abao, please don't get mad. I was wrong to yell at you like that. Madame Zhang did not reply, but even more tears are appearing. Zhong Wanchou scratched his head in distress. Bao, please don't get mad at me. I couldn't control myself. I'm so sorry. Madame Zhang quietly replied, You still can't forget that matter, no matter what. What's the point of me going on like this? Why don't you just kill me and end all of this? That way you don't have to keep on getting mad about this. Then just go marry another pretty wife, and that'll be that. Zhong Wanchou lifted his hands up and slapped himself twice. I was wrong. I need to be punished. Seeing the big hand of his hitting that long horse-like face, Duan Yu could not help but laugh at this comical scene. Even before he stopped laughing, he knew that he had already done it this time, and hoped against hope that Zhong Wanzhou did not hear him. But Zhong Wanzhou immediately shouted, "Who's there?" Pung! Someone had kicked open the door and jumped into the room. Duan Yu suddenly felt someone grab the back of his neck and threw him into the middle of the outside room. His eyes went black from the fall as he felt as if every bone in his body had just snapped. Zhong Wanzhou grabbed the back of his neck with his left hand and lifted him up. "Who are you? What are you doing in my wife's room?" Seeing Duan Yu's handsome face, he immediately became suspicious. He turned to Madame Zhong and said, "Abao, you, again!" Madame Zhong rebuked. "Again this, again that, again what? Put him down. He is here to report an emergency." Zhong Wanzhou asked, "What kind of emergency?" He still had Duan Yu in midair and turned to him. "Stinking bastard! I can tell from your appearance that you are not a good person. What are you doing secretly, hiding in my wife's room? Tell me now. Even if you tell half a lie, I'll make sure your head end up like this table." He brought his fist down hard onto a pear wood table, smashing half of it to bits. After being painfully thrown on the floor, lifted up in the air, and hearing from Zhong Wanzhou's tone of voice that he suspects that there may be something indecent going on between him and Madame Zhong, Duan Yu got mad instead of scared. He shouted back, "My surname is Duan. If you want to kill me, then hurry it up. I don't know what kind of rubbish you are talking about." Zhong Wanzhou lifted his right fist up and shouted in rage, "Your name is Duan too? Another one named Duan! Another one named Duan!" By now, the rage in him has turned into sadness and disappointment, and tears were filling those big, rounded eyes of his. Suddenly, Duan felt very sorry for this man, figuring that he knows that his appearance does not match his wife's, and that is the reason why he gets jealous and mad for no reason whatsoever. Actually, a very pathetic situation for him. Unexpectedly, even though his life is in the other man's hands, he started to console him. "My surname is Duan, but I have never met Madame Zhong before in my life. You have no need to be suspicious or sad." Happiness returned to Zhong Wanzhou's face as he asked in a crackled voice, "Really? You've never seen Abao before?" Duan Yu replied, "I only came here for the first time not an hour ago." Zhong Wanzhou laughed sillily, a couple of times and said, "Yes, of course. Abao hasn't left the valley in 10 years. 10 years ago, you were only 8 or 9. Of course you can't. You can't." But he still had Duan Yu up in the air. A shade of red appeared on Madame Zhong's face as she spoke up. "Aren't you going to put Mr. Duan down?" Zhong Wanzhou immediately replied, "Oh, yes, of course." He gently put Duan Yu down, but suddenly a look of suspicion appeared on his face again. Mr. Duan? Who's your father?" Does I announce when I go live? Every Monday at 6 o'clock Pacific. Okay. So we do this every 6 o'clock Pacific on Mondays. You like that laugh? Thank you. Thank you very much. Duan Yu figured, if I lie about it this time, it would actually seem like I have something to hide or whatever. So he said in an earnest tone, "Back then, I did not tell Madame Zhong the truth, when I shouldn't have. My name is Duan Yu, styled Hu Yu. I'm from Dali. My father's given name is first Zheng, then Chun." Zhong Wanzhou hadn't really figured out what first Zheng, then Chun meant when Madame Wang asked with her voice shaking, Your father is is Duan Zhengchun? Duan Yu nodded yes. Zhang Wanshao screamed, Duan Zhengchun! His scream was so loud that it seemed like the whole world was trembling. His face was red with rage, and his entire body was shaking as he yelled, You are the son of that dog, Duan Zhengchun! Duan Yu was furious and shouted back, How dare you insult my father? Zhang Wanzhou shouted back, Why wouldn't I dare? Duan Zhengchun, you are a dog, a bastard, a turtle egg. Suddenly, Duan Yu pieced it together. Oh, that's why he wrote outside, Those who enter with the surname of Duan will die. Must be because he hates my dad so much that he hates everyone named Duan. So he calmly and coldly replied, Master Zhong, if you have a grudge or hatred for my father, then you should get it over with, once and for all, in the view of the world. If you got guts, then go and insult my father to his face. Insulting him behind his back is not the way of a real man. My father is in Dali. If you want to go find him, then you'll find him easily. What's the point in putting up a sign in front of your house, saying those who enter with the surname of Duan will die? I'm starting to feel kind of sad for this dude. Not gonna lie. Zhong Wanshao's face turned many different shades in a row, as if every single word of what Duan Yu just said went straight into his heart. Rage shot out from his eyes as he looked like he was about to kill. After staying motionless for a while, he suddenly threw out 2 punches and smashed 2 chairs into pieces. He followed by throwing a kick at the wall, instantly creating a huge hole in the wall. All the while, he screamed, I'm not afraid of not being able to beat your father. I'm scared. I'm scared that your father would find out that Abao is here. When he got to here, there were faint traces of sobs in his voice. He suddenly covered his face with his hands and screamed, I'm a coward. I'm a coward. Suddenly he ran out of the room. But smashing noises kept on coming from outside as he kept on running into fences, flower pots, chairs, and such. Okay, that's a good place to stop. Give me 5 minutes, okay? We'll take a break. I'll be right back. All right, we back. All right, so we have a pretty good idea of what's going on here, right? So it looks like Madame Zhong and Duan Yu's dad had some shenanigans going on. Duan Yu was in shock for a long time. He thought, so what if my dad knows that your wife lives here? Would he come here and kill her? He thought that he was way too harsh with what he said, hurting Zhang Wanzhou like that. Regretting what he said and feeling bad about the whole situation, he turned around and saw that Madame Zhong was staring at him. As soon as their eyes met, Madame Zhong immediately turned her eyes away. Her face suddenly turned a shade of pink. After a little silence, she asked in faint voice, Mr. Duan, how has your father been? Is he doing okay? Since she was inquiring about his father, Duan Yu stood up and answered very politely and formally, Father has been very good and healthy. He is doing great. Madame Zhong replied, That's great. I also... Once again, Duan Yu saw that there were little tear droplets on her long eyelashes. She didn't even finish the sentence before having to turn away to wipe away the tears with her sleeves. Duan Yu felt sorry for her and tried to console. Auntie, even though Master Zhong has quite a temper, he has nothing but love and respect for you. The two of you have a full and beautiful marriage. This is a little disagreement. No need for Auntie to be sad like this. This guy has no idea. Madame Zhang turned around and gave him a little smile. At such a little age, what do you know about whether or not a marriage is full or beautiful? Seeing the faint traces of innocence and tenderness in her smile, Duan Yu's heart shook a bit, as he was immediately reminded of Zhongling. He turned his eyes towards Zhongling's pair of flower shoes on the table and thought, Miss Zhong, with that goat beard, she's probably suffering every moment of it. Gotta get her out of there as soon as possible. He spoke up. I was just very rude to Master Zhong. Could Auntie please go on my behalf and ask Master Zhong for forgiveness, and also ask him to leave and save his beloved daughter at once? Madame Zhong replied, My husband is busy taking care of some friends that had just arrived from very far away. It is truly very hard for him to leave right now. I'm sure you've just heard as well how peculiar these friends are, killing at the slightest provocation. If we aren't polite enough to them, who knows what kind of troubles that would bring us. The way things are now, let me go with you instead. Excited, Duan Yu replied, If Auntie herself can go, then there's nothing more that could be asked for. Remembering something that Zhongling told him, he asked, Can Auntie cure that Martin, Lightning's, poison? Madame Zhong shook her head. No, I can't. Duan Yu hesitated. Then this... Madame Zhong walked back into her room, left a brief little note, hurriedly tied a belt around her waist, and hung a sword off of it. Returning to the hall, she said, Let's go. And she immediately started to walk out. Duan Yu casually and naturally picked up the flowery shoes and put it inside his shirt. Madame Zhong shook her head in silence as if she wanted to say something, but she finally decided against it and kept on walking. Once the two of them got outside of the hole in the tree, Madame Zhong picked up her speed. Even though she looked delicate and frail, she was walking much faster than Duan Yu. Duan Yu still didn't feel assured. Auntie, since you don't know how to cure, I'm afraid that the Divine Farmer clan might not let your beloved daughter off so easily. Madame Zhong casually replied, Who says we are asking them to let her go? Divine Farmer clan dared to detain my daughter and threaten me. They must have grown tired of living. I don't know how to save someone, but that doesn't mean that I don't know how to kill someone. Duan Yu involuntarily shuddered as he felt that the disregard for human life in these last several casual sentences were as prevalent as the actions of that Yue number 3. Madame Zhong asked, How many concubines does your father keep? He's very curious about his father. Duan Yu answered, None. He doesn't keep any. My mom won't allow it. Madame Zhong asked, Is your father really scared of your mother? Duan Yu laughed and replied, Not really afraid. It is mostly love and respect, much like how Master Zhong is like to Auntie. Does your father practice Kung Fu every day? In these years, has his Kung Fu gotten much better again? Dad practices every day, but as for how good he is, I haven't the slightest clue. He hasn't slacked off on his Kung Fu then. I can set my mind to rest. How come you don't know any Kung Fu at all? Amidst the conversation, the two of them had walked another half a kilometer or so. Duan Yu was just about to answer when he heard a man screaming, Ah, Bao! Where are you going? Duan Yu turned around and saw Zhang Wanchou chasing up from behind with blinding speed. Madame Zhong grabbed Duan Yu's arm and shouted, Hurry up! She started to run forward with great speed. Duan Yu's foot was off the ground as he was almost being carried by Madame Zhong. The three of them covered 50 meters or so in a flash. Although Madame Zhong's Qinggong is not weaker than her husband, she was nevertheless dragging another person, and Zhang Wanchou gradually began to gain ground on her. After another 50 meters or so, Duan Yu could have swore he can feel Zhang Wanchou's breath on the back of his neck. Suddenly, there was a ripping sound, and he felt cold air blowing on his back. Part of the back of his shirt was torn off by Zhang Wanchou. No. Madame Zhong directed some inner force into her left arm and threw Duan Yu up over 10 meters ahead, while shouting, "Get out of here!" Her right hand had already stabbed back with the sword. Considering Zhong Wanzhou's kung fu, this move naturally shouldn't hit him. Besides, Madame Zhong had no intentions of injuring her husband. She just wanted to stop his pursuit. But when she struck out with her sword, she suddenly felt some slight resistance on the sword, as it had stabbed her husband in the chest. Oof. Turns out that Zhong Wanzhou did not dodge nor parry, but instead leaned forward and ran onto the sword. Madame Zhong was shocked and immediately turned around. Her husband was staring at her with a furious face, but with tears in his eyes. With blood gushing out from where he had been stabbed, he said in a shaking voice, "Abao, you are finally going to leave me." Even though her sword missed her husband's heart, it nevertheless was several inches deep in his chest and life-threatening. In panic, Madame Zhong immediately pulled the sword out and jumped forth to press hard on his wound. But blood was gushing out so much that they were shooting out through the little spaces between her fingers. Well, you guys did not expect that, did you? Madame Zhong angrily said, "I didn't want to harm you. Why didn't you get out of the way?" Zhong Wanzhou forced a wry smile and said, You are leaving me. I might as well die." He then broke into a coughing fit. Madame Zhong replied, "Who said I was leaving you? I'm just going out for a couple of days, and then I'll be back. I'm going to save our daughter. Didn't I explain everything in that note that I left?" "What note?" You are just too careless for your own good." So she briefly explained Zhongling's capture by the Divine Farmer clan. Guan Yu had been scared out of his wit by what he saw. When he had recovered from the shock, he immediately tore off a piece of clothing and tried to bandage up the wound for Zhong Wanzhou. Suddenly, Zhong Wanzhou's left foot came flying in and sent him rolling along on the ground. Zhong Wanzhou shouted, "Little bastard! I don't want to see you ever again." He turned to Madame Zhong. "You are lying. I don't believe you. He obviously came to get you. This little bastard is his son. He also insulted me." He began coughing again, causing the blood to gush out of his chest even more. He pointed at Duan Yu and shouted, "Come on, even though I'm wounded, I'm still not afraid of your Yi Yang touch. Come on." Duan Yu's left cheek had hit a particularly sharp rock when he fell down. So when he pitifully got back up, half of his face was covered in blood. He replied, "I don't know Yi Yang touch, and even if I could, I wouldn't use it on you." Zhang Wanzhou coughed some more before angrily replying, "Little bastard, what are you pretending to be? Go get your old man here." His coughing got even worse now that he is mad. Madame Zhong spoke up. "You are always suspicious about everything. Since you can't trust me, then I might as well die right in front of you and end it all." Oh, this is her trick. This is how she controls her husband. She picked up the sword on the ground and brought it up to her throat. Zhong Wanzhou grabbed the sword out of her hand, but happiness filled his face as he said in a shaking voice, Bao, you really weren't running off with this little bastard?" Madame Zhong angrily replied, "He is Mr. Duan. Would you stop with the little bastard, big bastard talk? I was going with Mr. Duan to get rid of the Divine Farmer clan and save our daughter." Hearing that she wasn't leaving him, Zhong Wanzhou was happy beyond belief. Add that on top, the slightly angry expression on her face, and immediately his love and affection returned. "If that's the case, then it's all my fault. But since I have already chased all this way, why didn't you just stop and tell me all this?" Madame Zhong's face turned just a little redder as she replied, "I didn't want you to see Mr. Duan again." Zhong Wanzhou's suspicion was suddenly aroused again. This Mr. Duan isn't your son, is he?" Angry and embarrassed, Madame Zhong replied, "Peh! Why are you just talking nonsense? First, he's my lover, now he's my son. To tell you the truth, he's my old man, your father-in-law. After saying that, she laughed despite of herself. Zhong Wanchou was taken aback for a moment before he realized that his wife was joking. That sent him into a wild laughter, which caused the blood to flow out even faster out of his wound. that was my impression. With tears rolling down her cheeks, Madame Zhang said, what should I do? This made Zhong Wanchou even happier as he put his arms around her waist and said, I'll bow with you worrying so much about me. Even if I die right now, I would not feel wronged. Madame Zhang's cheeks were burning red as she lightly pushed him away. Mr. Duan is here. How can you still act like that? Zhong Wanchou heartily laughed. After several laughs, he coughed several times. Seeing the pale and exhausted expression on her husband's face, Madame Zhang was deeply worried and said, I can't go save Ling Er now. She caused the trouble herself. She'll just have to see what fate she is dealt. She helped her husband up and then turned to Duan Yu. Mr. Duan, go tell Si Kongshuan my husband is that divine horse king, Zhong Wanchou, who shocked the martial world years ago. I'm Chan Bao Bao and have a rather unpleasant nickname, Pretty Medicine Fork. If he dares to even touch a single strand of hair on our daughter, remind him that the two of us are tough and merciless. For every sentence she said, Zhong Wanchou would add after it a, yes, that's right. Duan Yu had figured out that Zhong Wanchou could not go himself and that Madame Zhang cannot leave her husband to save her daughter after witnessing what he saw. Just using Divine Horse King Zhong Wanchou and Pretty Medicine Fork Chan Bao Bao's name probably could not scare Shi Kongshuan into submission. So it seems that the intestine fragmenter in his belly could not be cured. He figured, since things are like this, then there's no point and nothing good will come in saying any more. So he replied, all right, I will go and tell them immediately. Aren't they just a little, like, she could be a little more worried about her daughter, no? It kind of seems like she's not that worried about her daughter. Seeing how he just naturally and suavely got up to leave as soon as he said he would, Madame Zhang was once again reminded of someone in her mind. She cried out, Mr. Duan, I have one more sentence to say to you. She gently put her husband down and run up to Duan Yu. She took an object out of her shirt, stuffed it in Duan Yu's hand, and whispered, take this to your father and ask him to please save our daughter. Duan Yu replied, if my dad would come... Wait, did you catch that? Take this to your father and ask him to please save our daughter. Oh, never mind. Wait. Our daughter. Does she mean like her daughter and his father's daughter? Like Zhong Ling might not be this dude's daughter. Just saying. Duan Yu replied, if my dad would come out, then of course Miss Zhang would be saved. But the journey to Dali is not a short one. I'm afraid that I might not make it in time. Madame Zhang said, then I'll lend you a good horse. Please, wait here for a bit. Please don't forget to tell your dad exactly. Please save our daughter. I'm convinced. I'm convinced. Oh, I feel really bad for that dude. Poor Zhong, what's his name? Zhong Wanchou. Poor Zhong Wanchou. Oni-chan? Didi. Didi, stop. She did not wait for Duan Yu to reply running to her husband's side, helping him up and starting to walk back the way they came. Duan Yu held his hand up and saw that what Madame Zhang stuffed in his hand was a delicately made golden box. He opened it and saw that there was a piece of paper inside. The paper was faintly yellow, obviously very old, with several faint traces of spilled blood on it. On it was written, "Girl born between 1 and 3 a.m., February 5th, year of Gang Shan." The calligraphy was soft and weak, obviously written by a female, and the style was rather lacking. Other than that, there was nothing in the box. Duan Yu wondered, whose birth certificate is this? Madame Zhang wants me to give this to my dad. What for? The year of Gang Shan. Gang Shan. He did a bit of counting backwards with his fingers. That was exactly 16 years ago. Could it be Miss Zhang's? Madame Zhang wants to marry her daughter off to me so that my dad would go save his daughter-in-law? Yeah, exactly. Deep in his thoughts, he was suddenly interrupted by a man's voice. Mr. Duan! Oh, that's it. Yay! Chapter 2, done. Oh god. A lot of revelations in this chapter. The guy I feel the worst for, the guy I feel really bad about, is Zhang Guan. What's his? Can't remember his name. Is Zhong Wan Cho. Oh god. Alright, so it seems to me that Zhong Ling is not the dude's daughter, it's the daughter of Madame Zhang and Duan Yu's father, right? Yep. So Duan Yu is kind of in love with his half sister, maybe? Yeah. He is kind of slow. Yep. We have an Oni-chan situation here. Oh god. Alright. Is it time for a song? Alright, what song do you want? What do you want me to sing? Hit me. Dun, 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 dun. What about Country Road? Take me home to the place I belong. Alright, cheers. Sing the Tanuki song. That's too short. We want a real song. Take me home. Alright, Country Road is one possibility. Toxic by Britney Spears. I don't know that. Oh, kind of know it. I know she has a song called Toxic. Alright, I'm thinking Country Road is a good one. Unless you have another one. Toxic? I don't know the... Do I know the song? Sorry, I'm looking at the lyrics and I have no idea. Will I continue the reading today or will I do it next stream? Next stream. So we're done for the day. The reading is done. How about Annie's song? What is Annie's song? I've done Country Road before, have I? Well, it's been a while. I only know like a few songs, so I mean, I guess we can repeat. Yeah, I'm feeling some John Denver. I'm feeling some Country Road. All right, that's what we're doing. All right. Let's end this with some John Denver.